Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacast from your host, Imperial Dane. A 1 versus 1 on Moscow Outskirts shall be awaiting us today versus Itaperuna of the 13th Panzer Division going up against Sageofthesix of the 205th Rifle Division. Two confident players, two veteran players. Should be exciting what happens here, and we're noting already a dual pioneer start from Itaperuna, thus indicating a clear focus on gaining as much ground as possible initially. And of course we're going to see the same thing from the Soviets, although of course with some slightly more combat proven infantry in the form of the conscripts. And also clear intent from either player to get some of those munitions. Gonna start there from the infantry company for Itaperuna, point being secured. Troops advancing up the right hand side. Nothing so far to truly report. Noting Festung support, spearhead doctrine and Festung armor for Itaperuna. A nice mix, gives a bit of this and that, although there's clearly some indication that Itaperuna might be fond of the mortar half-track, as that's rather a recurring ability in two of the doctrines. Of course, it might just all be coincidence. But the mortar half-track is only one of the more, repeating units in the doctrines in the Germans. The other one would be the Tiger tank. I think there's like 3 or 4 doctrines that actually currently offer it. MG42 following up second. Itaperuna continuing to sort of spread out across the map. Sageofthesix returning the favour. Though clearly Sageofthesix also has the advantage, he was able to get in the fuel point first. Itaperuna sadly a bit more slow in that regard. MG42 arrives on the battlefield. Pioneers versus the combat engineers. Pioneers might try to make a rush for the church, the house of God. And a nasty little engagement between the conscripts and Grenadiers. Grenadiers perhaps a bit too slow getting into cover, but there we go. Manage heavy cover versus conscripts in light. The Grenadiers might have a chance here. And meanwhile, Pioneers take our blocking position inside the church. Another Pioneer squad moving up the western side. Another Grenadier squad on the way. MG42 moving up to support the Grenadiers, which rather leaves the Pioneers to fend for themselves for some time, and also leaves the right hand side quite open for the time being. Grenadiers versus conscripts. The conscripts so far are losing to the Grenadiers. The Grenadiers, due to heavy cover, has so far yet to lose a single man, whereas the conscripts have lost 2 and are down to health. MG42 moving up, and looks like he might have been spotted here. The conscripts ooh-rahing down. It might have been sheer coincidence, of course. Either way, though, manages to flank. Another combat engineer squad inch enough for Sageofthesix. Trying to shift about. The MG42 conscripts are in a bad position, getting shot by the MP40 toting machine gunners, and of course the Grenadiers as well. So these conscripts definitely do not have a chance of forced retreat. Right past the MG42, and there we go. A nice burst right point blank. We might see in fact, yes, conscripts got wiped out for Itaperuna. I mean, not Itaperuna, but Sageofthesix. Itaperuna was the one who wiped it out. So that's definitely quite a blow already to the Sageofthesix within the first few minutes. In fact, even before the 5-minute mark. So that's actually quite painful. We're seeing a third Grenadier squad on the way for Itaperuna, a rather heavy tier 1. Not that there's anything bad with it. Trying to route here a bit too slow though. Fat Yuri being fat. Pioneers and Grenadiers charging in to finish off the entire business. Right hand side, those being lost, and of course Sageofthesix being good, so your player's not the one who just focuses everything into an assault, but also moves up to sort of spreading out the front line, take as much territory as possible where Itaperuna isn't. So well played there by Sageofthesix. Conscripts on the retreat. Grenadiers squad moving up there. Boris fell down. And what shall be the next move here from Itaperuna? As he is a bit overextended at the moment. We also know here Special Rifle Command has been set up. That was likely the reason for the second Combat Engineer Squad to quickly get it up while the other Combat Engineer Squad was busy down there. And a third squad of Pioneers, that seems a bit extreme from Itaperuna. I know the coughing wasn't because of the shot, you know. Mein Gott, 3 Pioneers! Get me the Führer at once! Not that sort of, you know, cough. More like, well, you know, just a cough. Points still being secured. Left hand side, in fact, following over, so we're seeing rather a more downward split here. And if we consider things from the perspective of the two bases, that's definitely less usual. Of course, we'll see how long that lasts. In particular, with the scout car. We're also noting here that Sageofthesix actually built up a pretty early fuel cache. So clearly something's being planned here, and certainly the best time for caches is somewhat early in the game. So that usually means you'll be able to get the most out of the investment if you also place it correctly. And certainly the point right here is definitely one of the better spots for it. So scout car with flamethrower grenadiers holding up in the church here. Light mechanized company going up for the Itaperuna. And there we go, light machine guns for the grenadiers, increasing their firepower, and the conscripts all of a sudden are in dire straits. And a second scout car looks like. Sageofthesix is rather a mechanized player. He loves the motors, the wheels, the speed. And popping both with combat engineers. Clearly a nasty little tactic here being involved with strategy. Lovely to see that. And there we go, conscript squad number 2 wiped out. He is suffering though some nasty losses as well. But now it might be returned towards Sageofthesix. And my apologies. And there we go, scout car down, but the grenadiers are still in trouble. Pioneer squad has been wiped out, and if he's going to lose the grenadier squad that quickly with a light machine gun, that could prove to be a bit bad for his health. Scout car on the way though from the light mechanized company in return. Lots of fire, and there we go, a torrent of sulphurous steam catches up with the last poor bastard and leaves him a crumbling, roasting chicken in the roadside. And there we go, first scout car arriving, he's upgrading it. Again, I have to admit, I'm currently not a huge fan of it. It's rather something like once you've blown up the scout car, you've yourself got a scout car you can't really use because it's pretty rubbish against infantry. So again, my recommendation for the time being, and it's not a recommendation I want to make, is don't upgrade it. Unupgraded, the scout car is in fact quite effective, reasonably so against Soviet scout cars, but most effective against infantry, which basically means it also has a more long-term ability to survive that way. And we're seeing hit the dirt, so that means guards rather than combined arms. So nope, guards infantry, so that means, yeah, well, guards rather than combined arms. I was about to say conscript support. Second scout car arriving, also upgrading it. Oh, he cancelled it, thank God. That was better. That's definitely going to be a slightly more healthy combination. At least one scout car can actually deal with infantry. Again, it is effective here. Oh, this. Also good usage of the scout car here. In fact, he's got 2 up again, so Sageofthesix, very mobile player. Perhaps should have gone for something else than rifle division, but that's too late now. Either way, using it to, of course, quickly move about, take points, attack, hit and run. Definitely a sort of strategy you can apply there, hit and run tactics. And certainly that was one advantage the Soviet army had as the war progressed. They actually became more and more mobile than the Germans, simply due to the fact they received all the American trucks and vehicles and all that, which basically make much out of the German tactics would have stopped them once a breakthrough happened. But looks like he might lose another grenadier squad, and now he has upgraded both scout cars. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. I am a bit disappointed there. But there we go, another grenadier squad wiped out. That's actually some considerably heavy losses right there for Itaperuna. That's going to be taking some time to recover from. Trying his best with the 2 scout cars, but again, as you're noticing, they're just not doing it. And I sincerely hope some patch in the future actually sorts them out. Because again, otherwise, if it doesn't have some sort of anti-infantry ability, it's just not worth it. Either that or it needs to be a lot more effective against vehicles and such. But right now, Itaperuna has also lost an MG42. Itaperuna is bleeding. This is not good. Submachine guns being equipped, lovely. Veterans 1 right here hitting the dirt. Actually looks like it might make them easier for the scout cars to handle. Or simply just because of sheer volume of auto cannon fire. And certainly the poor bastards are getting shredded, but they probably would have been shredded faster had it not been upgraded. And now we are finally seeing some replacement grenadiers on the way, but Itaperuna will need quite a few. The losses have been grim, dire, not very fun, although of course we have to admit that Sageofthesix has also been suffered quite a bit. Several scout cars gone, conscript squads also dead. So it's obviously not because Itaperuna has been doing all rubbish himself, not like he's been running his head into a wall while pretending to be Napoleon. So again, I mean, in some sense it's quite equal, but I do think Itaperuna might be hobbling himself a bit here again with 2 upgraded scout cars. However much I like the idea of autocannon shredding things, again, currently not quite cutting it.
The hard part will be keeping it.
Here for the Ausklärungsabteilung of the 13th Panzer Division, or Ausklärungsabteilung 13, 13 that is.
Engineer standing by.
Which in the case of the Germans, reconnaissance battalion would usually be a mix of Panther grenadiers and half-tracks, some in jeeps, or well, full Kubelwagens and Schwimmwagens, and then a mix of scout cars as well. The Soviets were actually also quite fond of scout cars, in particular in the earlier parts of the war. In fact, they had a quite impressive one with a 45mm gun, but as the war progressed, they partly shifted over towards reconnaissance tanks, and basically the T-34-76, but also towards a very, very small scout car, which was basically like the unupgraded this one. Basically, not that effective, but I suppose it was there. But little fun fact, those Soviet reconnaissance strategy tended to be a bit different. One of their favourite methods was basically reconnaissance through assault, which basically meant they attacked the position and then had someone observe the Soviet positions as the German positions as everything was shot back at them so they could prepare for the next assault. Perhaps not the nicest thing, but that was the Soviet approach. Although of course not the only approach. The Soviets did have some variety in tactics and strategy. But there we go, trying to wipe out a squad of conscripts on the retreat. And again, note, they're just not having quite any luck. Had they been unupgraded, this squad of conscripts would probably have been dead already. So again, not recommendable at the time being. Also noting a sniper here for Itaperuna. He's rather sticking around much in the tier 1, only with really the scout cars here from tier 2, which is quite interesting. And this scout car is actually still operational, which is quite impressive. Mechanized armor company going up, so clearly moving on to something a bit bigger. Although he is lacking in fuel. And the church so far proves to be quite sturdy despite being made entirely out of wood.
We are losing supplies to the enemy.
Another conscript squad, perhaps worried of anti-tank grenades. It stays respectful distance, that is good. So we actually see that Sageofthesix hits the dirt right there. And a quick rifle grenade. Ah, doesn't get the machine gunner. Bastard. Not quite in luck with these conscripts. The Panther IV here actually absorbing some of the damage. They can't last forever. Eventually that wreck will have to crumble. Another grenadier squad in trouble. Needs to Panther faster before it tries retreating. And we're actually seeing him using overdrive. That's definitely good. Use increases the speed and it actually also means the vehicle is actually harder to hit. The same thing applies with Blitzkrieg basically. But it's actually rare you see veterans the ability used, but still that's good. When you actually see someone using it, it also tends to be a hallmark of a better player if they actually begin using their veterans abilities. In fact, that's one of the sort of best ways of actually spotting a novice, at least he doesn't use the veterans abilities at all. They tend to be neglected by a lot of players, which I feel is a shame. Mortar half-track that is up for Itaperuna, which of course means, well, either festering support or spearhead doctrine for the time being. Though of course, I mean, from Sageofthesix perspective, of course he has to then figure out what is of these two, what should he expect? Howitzers, Osttruppen, or should it be a Tiger to worry about? Fragmentation, bombing runs, other nasty things.
Anti-tank rifle ready.
All sort of things, you know, you have to wonder about when you see a certain unit, doctrine unit. You then have to wonder, are there any other doctrines which might use it? What can I do to sort of further deduce things down? So in that sense, you know, there's a little game in that as well. Bit of analyticals. And there goes Sniper arriving up. Scout cars continue to blast away. So it's Scout car moving up. Actually, I think Sageofthesix is... Oh, he's going to hit overdrive. He's going to hit overdrive. He's going to see perhaps if he can't hit the sniper or something else. Ooh. Well, he's just driving past here. That's definitely interesting. Scout car down to half. Veteran 2 and less than half health. Oh, looks like Itaperuna is not swift enough here to Panther Faust it. What a shame, but good use of overdrive. Oh, wow, the Panther Faust actually missed. Wow. Pretty rare, but it can happen. And there we go, an HU-85 arrives. And the scout car is being sent in to deal with the enemy Soviet scout car. Conscripts leading the assault, hitting the dirt. Sniper getting some poor bastard. For some reason, laying still on the ground is, surprisingly enough, not protection against snipers.
We have lost one of our armored vehicles.
If laying still in exposed position was the best protection against snipers, I'm pretty sure Stalingrad will look different. Well, most snipers. Anyway, it's Galanesia coming under fire. Sniper needs to be a bit careful. There is nothing to cover him. Not the best position for a sniper. Mortar after continuing to fire away. Looks like a unit went down for Itaperuna. And Scout car, in fact, is dead. And there we go. Veterans 1 for the German sniper. He could try using the B-Patronen to actually sort of stun a squad. Oh, Grenadiers got almost down. Ach, du lieber. And incendiary rounds. Sniper needs to be careful. Stick to cover. In Deckung. But right now, we do note here that Itaperuna has a considerable problem. He's got no anti-tank defenses. He's got nothing to stop the Su-85 and protect his light vehicles. That's usually what you describe as a problem. Guard infantry covering the flanks, ensuring the scout cars can't rush up. And there we go, one is downed, toast, wreckage, debris. Itaperuna once more on the back foot. And a second sniper out for him. And these Grenadiers need to vacate the premises. And there we go, scout car down to half health. Already looks like he's actually trying to, I think, outflank the Su-85. Dangerous work, and apparently doesn't quite work. Quite an intense expenditure of manpower for Itaperuna in getting 2 snipers, and there we go, scout car down, in fact abandoned. Jürgen here apparently not being the best sniper ever.
Where do you need us?
A bit of quiet. And finally some anti-tank arrives for Itaperuna. I do feel that was a bit of a mistake not getting something a bit earlier. Usually you want something. Oh, the Su-85 got one of the snipers. Again, Itaperuna needs to be a bit more careful. He seems a bit cavalier in regards to some things. And certainly having a hard time actually holding the map at the moment. And a second Su-85 arriving for Sageofthesix. He's obviously deciding he wants to fortify his advantage and prepare himself against any armoured shenanigans from the Germans. That looks like he's given up the scout cars, but still I think he's had a good run with them, had several of them, did a lot of damage, wiped out some squads, gained some nice chunks on the map. So it is not as though the scout cars were a waste of resources, in particular because scout cars do tend to be cheap. I just wish that Itaperuna had been a bit more sensible with his and had not upgraded them.
Leading, comrade! We are ready!
Points being secured, going for the fuel rather aggressively.
Enemy forces are attempting to capture our territory.
Ready! Enemy infantry!
And we're seeing incendiary rounds being utilised against the Grenadiers, shredding them. Splendid work there by Itaperuna again, using a veterancy ability. Also, thing I like to see besides mining, you know, in companies too, veterancy ability usage. It's something that does tend to be neglected, which again is a shame, as they can make a difference at the right time in the right spot. The Grenadier squad sent running by the appearance of a quite large Sword infantry force.
New anti-tank gun has arrived. The
We
enemy
could
is
try relief
taking our
infantry,
territory.
but two packs, or packs, conscripts here under some rather intense fire. Snipers, Grenadiers, light machine guns, and now the mortar half-tech as well.
300 points remaining.
Though so far the mortar half-tech is having a bit of bad time hitting anything at all. But 4 squads of Grenadiers, a well-timed... Oh dear, the S-35 got the sniper just as he reached veterancy 1. Ach du lieber. Again, he needs to be careful about just leaving them out in the open like that. They need something to screen for them. Infantry forces before snipers. In particular, the German snipers are very much dependent on that. German units in particular are more dependent on synergies like that. They aren't quite as dependent as German infantry, Russian infantry units. And looks like the mortar half-tech finally killed someone, which wasn't on their side either. Amazing. But again, a full-on assault support relief infantry could give Itaperuna some sort of benefit, allow him to push on a bit more aggressively.
AT gun here.
Good preservation of the mortar, but actually pulling it back for reinforcement and healing. So rare we see that. So obviously, I mean, Itaperuna is not exactly a novice himself either. Though again, I think he might be playing a bit too high risk for my liking. But that ultimately comes down to his own. The Grenadiers here that are suffering heavily intense fire from the Guards infantry, supported by the 2 H-85s, laying down thick supportive fire. And no taking up at all for Itaperuna. He could actually easily do it now and perhaps then work his way towards a Panther.
The enemy is attempting to steal our
And we're actually seeing a move over to support weapon company for Sageofthesix. That's actually nice. I mean, some players tend to be, afraid of, taking back and forth and here and there again, though. That's the strength of Soviet teching. It's more specialized in some ways for the different buildings, but then you can also choose what you want more easily. And that sense, if you then decide, I want some of this, then you can easily go back towards and get it. Veterans you want for the mortar half-tech. Hooray!
Pioneers reporting objective captured. They're killing us!
Things, though, continue to look a bit grim. In fact, I do believe it's time for the mid-game analysis right here and right now. Concentration is of definite favour of Sageofthesix. He's holding most of the map. He's holding most of the resources. In fact, he's holding both fuel points. Plus, he's got his own fuel cache, so fuel is obviously not a problem for Sageofthesix. Whereas for Itaperuna, it's not quite either, but he's not really got much to use it on, although it looks like he's taking up now. He could try this. In that case, going for several Strooks to provide some, numbers fire might work out alright. Of course, he could move straight on to the next tier and go for some Panthers, which could also work out. But he needs to pull together some sort of more coordinated assault. He's rather now actually just shifting unit here, unit here, unit here, unit here, unit here, and it's allowing Sageofthesix to basically just focus down one unit at a time with a larger, more concentrated force, which isn't really working out for Itaperuna. He needs to focus, he needs to get things together, and he might want to actually use relief infantry in conjunction with something, because then he might even be able to get an additional 3 Ostropen squads if he uses it correctly during those 2 minutes it's active in. Then he can actually have 7 squads of infantry, and then he can actually, you know, push out on a broader front and actually use the Ostropen, you know, to harass his opponent while the Grenadiers do the main fighting, as an example. Or he could also just rush the H-35s with the Ostropen Panzerfaust and then move something else to deal with them that way. But, you know, I think a good usage of relief infantry could prove to be quite advantageous to Itaperuna at this stage of the fight. That, and I think he needs to go for either Battle Phase 2 or Battle Phase 3, where the buildings right there involved, and get some sort of armor out. I think he definitely needs that at this stage, because he's definitely not got the right doctrine to keep playing at this, in which case he should have gone for something like Festering Armor and gone for the Pack 43. For Sageofthesix, I mean, we know what doctrine he's gone to. Of course, he's always got the opportunity of going for the heavy howards. Otherwise, I mean, he's got a nice chunk of buildings. He can get a bit of this and that. He's got the HD5s, the possibly SU-76s, Katyushas, machine guns, mortars, field guns, snipers, scout cars, and penal troops. He might benefit from a single penal troop squad, though. Otherwise, I mean, I think he's doing alright. The HD5s are currently not really under threat for anything, and again, that's going to be one of Itaperuna's main priorities, that is, threaten the HD5s. Force Sageofthesix to be a bit more clever. Otherwise, I mean, Sageofthesix is actually using his HD5s quite handily. He's not using them like tanks like some more raw players might do. Also, victory points are currently in the favour of Itaperuna, but that might not last too long. So again, Itaperuna needs to build up a front line, and again, he also needs to stop being so greedy. Again, he's trying to hold basically everything, which again is not working against a Soviet player, in particular one as aggressive and competent as Sageofthesix. So he needs to scale back his ambitions and, you know, decide on what he wants to hold initially, and then build up a force, then go on the offensive and take the rest. So let us return to the fight.
Our territory. Grenadiers reinforced.
Mortar Half-Track actually scoring some kills now. Wondrous. Wondrous indeed. And the Germans did have many variants of half-tracks with many kinds of weapons. Anti-tank guns, anti-aircraft guns, flamethrowers as we've seen. Heavy machine guns, all kinds of fun little things. Cannons of some kind. Though they never actually mounted artillery on them. Although, interesting enough, the Americans actually mounted some light artillery on their half-tracks in some cases.
Receiving fire!
Reclaimed it. Enemy forces are securing our territory.
Grenadiers leading the advance here, and Panzer Grenadiers scored out, so 5 squads for Itaperuna, that's handy. You could also consider getting these with a Panzerschreck. That could also work out, though I would also like to see this one used. SU-85 rolling about, points being secured left and right. All victory points in the hands of the Soviet army.
Enemy armor has engaged us! Territory secure.
And Grenadiers getting blasted to smithereens. It looks like he's actually gone for a mortar to support things here. Lovely to see that. Sageofthesix actually adding some depth to his army. Splendid, splendid. And veterans, you want for the anti-tank, and he could try and use this one to actually stun the SU-85 so it doesn't have a chance to escape. And looks like the Grenadiers are actually doing a lot of damage to the mortar crew. Could he get it? Could he destroy it? Or will the Maxim and the conscripts get the Grenadiers first? Oh, looks like they did. What a shame, what a shame. Sector artillery prepared now.
Target destroyed.
I'm so sick of these Russians.
Oh, Grenadier from the Soviets killed a lot of Panzer Grenadiers and a few Grenadiers.
Grenadiers under fire!
Sageofthesix launching a vicious assault in the centre, trying to hit from several sides with the support from the mortar and SU-85s a bit as well. Also noting here the conscript squad now guarding the mortar. Not a bad idea.
Reinforcements complete.
Itaperuna though seems to have staged a comeback. Obviously, things are not that straightforward. And I definitely think Sageofthesix should pull back his mortar. Either that or have some conscripts merge with it and reinforce it. And certainly actually using merge is something I think also some Soviet players could definitely improve from actually using. Conscripts getting wiped out, and yes indeed, actually merging. Well done, Sageofthesix. Merging his conscripts with the mortar so he can keep it at the front line, and it's actually cheaper to use conscripts and actually reinforce in most cases. So splendid work there from Sageofthesix. That's really what I like to see and what I like to show. Good usage of abilities. Good job right there. And we're actually also seeing him actually using tracking here to get some improved line of sight, spot things ahead. Really good usage, really good.
Panther firing on us!
And a nice incendiary mortar round straight into the building, turning it into an oven. Burning away at the poor bastards caught inside. And there we go, finally taking up H-85 advancing. No need to be careful, but we also note here that packs are not quite there. And ooh, strafing run. Sturmovik rolling in from above. Getting off a good strafe. And there we go, relief infantry going up just as the strafe moves in, actually trying to preserve some units, or at least get something out of it. Mortar half-track abandoned. Well, at the same time, most of his troops are not at the front line at the moment, and we're seeing sector artillery going in as well, just as the comedy is, and the more H-85 moves in. That could work out nicely, nicely indeed. Mortar half-track blown up though. Needs to be careful he doesn't get knocked out by his own sector artillery. H-85 sadly made it out there. He should have perhaps tried and Panther Fausted. A definite shame right there for Itaperuna. He missed a chance to get that H-85. Also note, relief infantry basically affects anything that's human. That is crew members of support weapons, including pack crews, pioneers, infantry, whatever. As long as you lose 6 of those guys, it doesn't have to be a squad getting wiped out, you get something back. And now with the 2 minute, I mean, if you time it correctly, you can get the max out of it during that period, which is 3 squads of Osttruppen. Of course, you shouldn't waste entire squads for that, but again, you know, if you're doing a good fight, you can actually end up with a sudden reserve, which can apply a lot of pressure, and there we go. A squad of Osttruppen arrives. Been some time you've seen those featured in the Propagandacast. Also note here, this is actually a new one. I believe I changed that. I actually talked about that, a relic, when we were there, but they actually gain a bonus when they are in cover or in garrisoned. They are much more defensive infantry. They're not the sort of offensive infantry like other troops, but still, if you actually place them into cover, they become more effective. So a little fun fact there for you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, S-85 finally went down. Popping over to Sageofthesix. Perhaps not on the most effective relief infantry usage, but still he got something out of it, which is better than nothing.
We are ready.
Oh! Grenadier squad almost wiped out. Need to retreat, and Katyusha going out at the same time. This would actually be a good time for relief infantry usage. Oh, lost the Grenadiers, lost the Grenadiers. Still good. Oh, really good usage of that Katyusha right there. Spotting a rather vulnerable clamped up unit. Getting the most out of it. Of course, combined with focus sight to sort of gain an idea of what things are. Good, good. Another H-85 on the way. Heavy Panzer Corps finally up. Osttruppen here run into some issues with an MG-42. Itaperuna, though, suffering rather gravely. More specifically, his infantry is. Itaperuna himself, I imagine, is less dead.
We are awaiting orders.
But a nice chunk of troops.
Mortar ready for order.
We have found the enemy!
Kill the Russian dogs!
More units are here.
Itaperuna, though, once more on the back foot, getting solidly pushed back.
The territory is in our hands.
The enemy is encroaching on our territory.
Your orders, comrade.
And the Katyusha actually moving ahead. If only there was something to actually take advantage of it, but there's not.
Under infantry attack.
Instead, the Katyusha will be taking advantage of the fact there's nothing covering the center and firing rockets straight into the base of Itaperuna.
Supply sector under attack.
We will not forget his sacrifice.
The enemy is reduced to 200
Ostrom supporting a pioneer squad, getting them into coverage. Again, they get that small bonus, then moving them ahead so they lose it.
What?
And there we go, Panzerkampfwagen 5 has arrived. Panther.
Under our control. Ready for orders.
Don't just stand there! Move!
And now the Ostrom are moving in, marching ahead for Deutschland, despite not being Deutsch. And there we go, they actually get some guardsmen.
We are losing supplies to the enemy.
We are ready.
Firing away, conscripts moving up.
Squad ready.
And some poor bastard went down. Another man dead. They were quite clearly outnumbered by more veteran infantry, but still they did their best.
Enemy forces capturing supply sector.
Ultimately, though, they're going to be pushed away.
Now we wait.
So Itaperuna might just want to retreat them. Panther on the move to support. Things continue to be close in the victory point department. Though Itaperuna is now the one on the losing side.
Down! Heads down!
Panther unleashing all kinds of hell at close range with the machine guns and the main gun.
Okay, that's the last one. We are taking losses. The sector is at risk.
What?
Well done, well done. Conscripts retreating.
Fire! Look
Point secured.
Contact!
Although the Panther will need some repairs.
Mines all set.
All a bit quiet here. Mortars, interesting enough, been moved up much forwards. Oh well.
Assault gun ready for action.
And note here that Sageofthesix is actually keeping his 85s in a more reserved position, ready to react to anything, but otherwise not too close to the front line. Splendid work there. Definitely not a bad tactic. And the third HU-85 on the way.
Keep moving! Stay low! Where do you need us?
Fuck! Grenade!
Veterans infantry grenadiers, but a grenade threatens to end their lives, but no, it does nothing.
Quick!
Engineers have secured the sector.
Conscripts under attack!
Nice five grenade there, almost wipes out half the guard squad. Finding up here the centre, Ostrom's opponent grenadier squad.
Building. Start ducking. Squad is ready to break. Promotion.
Also, thing about Ostrom is they veterancy up very fast.
Man down!
Fuck, we've lost the man. Our unit count is increasing. We are ready to build it all.
And a second Panther is out.
Taking losses!
Katyusha rockets up the centre, wiping out most of the Ostrom squad. Gaining veterans one for the Katyusha in return. Down to one man.
Things are getting
The
hot.
enemy has 100 supply sector under attack.
Fucking hell, they are killing us! We are awaiting orders.
And again, note the disposition of the HU-85s, in particular now that he knows they're Panthers. He's thinking very much more carefully. He's waiting for the Panthers to make the move, and then he's going to strike most likely. That will at least be my assumption based on things. Not a bad idea. Since if he has to march forwards, he could risk actually getting outmaneuvered by the Panthers, since the Panthers are actually faster than Su-85s. Fun little fact there. Itaperuna though needs to be careful he doesn't get them damaged with an engine. There we go, Su-85 opens up. Other Su-85s are moving in. Panthers need to get moving. We're seeing Mark buttoning up the vehicle. Nasty work, nasty work. More Su-85s are moving up. The trap has been sprung. And we are noting that Itaperuna's Panthers under the straight. And there we go, a mine went off. Panther down. Veteran 2 for the other Su-85. This is really bad, really bad. Without support and a bit of a clumsy assault, Itaperuna's just lost both his Panthers. Hunted down by the pack of Su-85s. That is not good. Except for Sageofthesix, who I'm sure is quite pleased with himself.
The enemy is encroaching on our territory. Standing by.
And that would pretty much be a GG moment, losing 2 Panthers like that. But destroying a single Su-85, in fact gaining 1 veteran to 2.
What? Get down! Grenade!
That's not something you're going to get back from.
Enemy forces are attempting to capture our territory.
Waiting orders.
And there we go, conscript squad wiped out.
Ultimate sacrifice. We need to re-establish our supply lines.
I mean, Itaperuna is currently actually gaining background, but at the same time he's losing so many troops doing so. Whereas we do note that Sageofthesix force is much better held on, and is actually much more veteran. Ostruben on a mission of flank. No, he's apparently forgotten about the MG42
We are losing supplies
and
to
moves
the enemy.
straight in front of it again.
Incoming!
And there we go.
Now this land belongs to
Ostruben on the run once more. Bit of a shame.
Territory secured.
Enemy fire! Comrade!
PPSHs are here, Red Army.
Now your fury can hit something.
Speeding things up a bit.
Engaging us!
The enemy has only 50 points remaining.
A fresh mortar half took out.
Comrade!
A pair of Panzer Grenadiers overwhelmed by veterans with 3 Guards infantry. A poor fight for Itaperuna. It looks like Jürgen makes it out of there.
The sector is at risk. We have nearly won. The enemy is down to 25 points.
Not resources enough for a Panther or anything.
I fear we are losing. We have 10 points.
And the points are ticking down pretty fast, so might as well speed up. And there we go. Game over. A loss for the Reich, a victory for the Soviet Union, a victory for Sageofthesix. Itaperuna played bravely, but he made a few critical mistakes, which rather threw away some good advantages. Again, the 2 scout cars, I think, was, again, not really the best choice. Again, currently, I would not recommend upgrading the scout car, particularly not upgrading 2 scout cars. It's simply not cost efficient. The idea for, waiting for these Panthers was nice, but it came in too late, much too late, and the way it was handled could have been better. Relief infantry could have been used better, but ultimately I think what cost Itaperuna the game was basically he was too greedy. He couldn't settle for what he actually wanted to hold. He wanted to hold everything, and ultimately he couldn't. And that was what Sageofthesix rather expertly played on, in particular using the scout cars to punish the greed and the avarice of Itaperuna, quickly moving about here and there, hitting the weak spots, then adding in Su-85s and otherwise good usage of his doctrine. So I mean, well played by Sageofthesix, clearly showing that he's gotten some ideas for how to play the Soviets, and some good ones. Also using veteran abilities like, overdrive. He used mortars, he used merge. Again, rarely seen, so overall, well played there. Hope you enjoyed this match. Hope you learned something from it. If you did, why not subscribe, tell your friends. If you didn't, well, why not send a replay and provide some feedback. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers.